Good morning, everyone. It is Thursday, March 31st, 2022, and this is a special edition of Gabriel Talks Football. We've got a lot of wide receivers to talk about. But speaking of the date, Greg, do you ever pull any pranks on April 1st, which will be tomorrow?
No.
Okay, good.
Never have. I mean, you know what? It's April 1st. Who cares?
That's typically the way I am.
We're out of March, and April means maybe, just maybe, I can play golf before the month's out.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice? Yeah, I'm not one for April Fool's pranks, but I don't have to worry about you tweeting something out that would disturb me, and then you telling me it's April Fool's. So
no, never. No, there's too many idiots on Twitter that you would come back with something weird.
Oh yeah.
I'm not my thing.
I hear you. Hey, we're going to talk about wide receivers. We've selected about 13 or 14 wide receivers to get your evaluation on them. This is something our fans here in the chat room have been asking for. So over the next few weeks, we'll do some other position areas. But thought I'd start with the wide receivers, submitted some names to you, and you came back and said, I'd like to add a couple more. So what's your general feeling about this wide receiver class?
I think as a whole, I mean, just and not just talking this year, but going back, say, the last 4 years, the wide receiver classes have gotten stronger. And part of it is the passing game, and the passing game in college has gotten stronger too. And some of these college offenses are more sophisticated, and they've gotten the receivers more ready to play in the pro game. Now, in saying that, one thing, when rookies used to come in, what coaches used to do, and it would just boggle the mind of these guys because they'd be swimming, is they'd have them learn like all three positions. Because you said this guy's going to be a backup, and everything is different depending if you're the X receiver, the Z receiver, or the slot, whatever name you want to give them, and it could be very, very confusing for a rookie, especially if he came from a simplified passing offense in college, and it takes time. We used to think, and this is going back even when. We took Bernard Berrien and some other guys, is that the light came on in year 3. Right. And because they finally got acclimated to what was going on. Well, that's changed. Now you're seeing guys come out of college and put up big numbers. I mean, last year you had a kid go, the mid rounds, might have been the second or third, is Equanimous St. Brown's little brother, Amon-Ra St. Brown. He had 90 receptions for the Detroit Lions last year. Mm-hmm. So, and you see this every year. Jefferson with Minnesota, the guy up in Cincinnati. I mean, hell, he's one of the better receivers in the league this year as a rookie. So they can get a chance to play. And now, in saying that too, don't necessarily have to be first round picks. Mm-hmm. The second round is loaded with good receivers every year. And I put some numbers together just so we could start this off.
Cool.
Now, I went back to 2010. These are exercises I used to do all the time when I was working in the league. Sometimes I'd go back 20 years. But in this case, the league has changed with receivers. And this is now the Bears are picking 39 is their first pick, right?
Right.
Okay. In 2010, 2 wide receivers went in the first round. 1 more went in the second before 39. So they would have had, that type, the 4th receiver on their board. The next year, 2011, 3 went in the first round. None went in the first 6 picks of the second round. 2012, 4 in the first round, 1 in the first 6 picks. 2013, 2 wide receivers in the first, 1 in the first part of the second. 2014, 5. That was the high number for back then. and then one again in that early part of the second. 2015, 6 went in the first, 1 went in the second early. Now 2016, 4 went in the first, none went in the top of the second, but all the other guys that went in the second had great careers and are having one of like Michael Thomas with New Orleans.
Wow.
Okay. And all 4 that went in the first busted. If you want to include Will Fuller as a bust, and I do, because I never thought he was a first round pick. Yeah. You know, he went because of his speed. Now, how about this first stat? He's been available for 104 games. He's missed 48.
Wow. He is soft.
Well, he gets hurt. And last year, he missed almost the whole season. He gets hurt every single year. Not one time since he's been in the league has he played a full season.
And he doesn't have the best hands.
No, but he can run. So everybody gives him a chance. 2017, 3 in the first, 1 in the top of the second. 2018, 2 in the first, 0 in the top of the second. 2019, 2 in the first, 1 in the second. 2020, 6 in the first, 2 in the second. Last year, 5 in the first, 1 in the top part of the second. Now, I got a list here. Some of these guys who went early in the
draft.
No, great second round pick.
Okay.
Receiver. Okay, use last year. Some of them went. Okay, last year, Rondell Moore from Purdue went to Arizona. Elijah Moore from Ole Miss went to the Jets in the second round. 2020, Michael Pittman with the 34th pick went to the Colts. And then, like, the next pick off the board was T. Higgins from Clemson, who was a key part of the passing offense for the Bengals this year. Also in 2029 at pick 49, Chase Claypool.
Yeah.
Pretty good player.
A guy I coveted, yeah.
Okay. 2019, 36th pick, Deebo Samuel.
Outstanding player. We saw him down at the Senior Bowl, and everybody knew this guy's going to be a stud.
Okay. 2019, 51st pick, A.J. Brown. He's a perennial Pro Bowler with Tennessee. 2018, Cortland Sutton from SMU. He's been the leading receiver. Yeah, it's been real good.
Yeah.
How about another one in 2018, not till the 47th pick. Sutton went at 40, 47. Christian Kirk, who just broke the bank for Jacksonville.
I'm still scratching my head over that one. But
okay, yeah. Well, I mean, he deserved money. He didn't deserve that much money.
All right.
Okay. And then even later than that, in the second round, DJ Chark went to Jacksonville at 61. Okay, going back to 17, Curtis Samuel with Carolina went at 40. Juju went at 62 to Pittsburgh. Now, he's had 2 seasons with better than 95 receptions. And then probably one of the best all time in 2016, second round wide receivers, Michael Thomas with the Saints.
Wow. Amazing.
So I don't want to hear you don't get a good, and then when you go through the first round, I don't think that the stats match up with some of the ones in the second round.
Yeah. And do you think that it's even more likely that you find guys like a Darnell Mooney in the 4th and 5th round of?
Mooney they got in the 6th.
Yeah.
Now I think part of that, and I'm throwing a dart at the wall here. It wasn't very big. He was about 172, 173 pounds coming out. Right. Went to Tulane, but then COVID hit. So he had the combine that year. And right after the combine, like 2 weeks later, the world got shut down.
Yeah.
So you had no private workouts. You didn't have coaches going in to see the guy. And he slipped through the cracks. He legitimately probably should have been a 3rd round pick.
Yeah. Interesting. Matthew Forchisi has an interesting thought here, something that I've thought about too. Will wide receivers turn into the next position that gets devalued because it seems you can find one anywhere these days?
Well, no, I don't agree with that because they play. One of the reasons running backs get devalued is because they don't have a long shelf life.
Okay.
Okay, and when they start to fall off the cliff, they're not going on a gradual slide. They're on the freight elevator going straight down. And you could be real good one year and just be terrible the next. Because once your legs start to go, it's all over. For a running back. So, and this year there's a lot of good guys, but there's two. One is definitely a first round talent. I think they're wild cards in this draft, and it's because they had ACL injuries so late, and both are the Alabama receivers. Williams gets hurt in January, and Metchie gets hurt in December in the SEC championship game. So they have late surgeries, ACL surgeries. Now there's a video on Twitter yesterday of Williams doing some hopping, one foot then the other foot, but you could tell which leg he hurt. He hurt the left foot. He couldn't bring the knee up anywhere near as high as he could with the other one. So, but he's doing stuff, but still, I think the chances of them being ready to go when the season starts is about 10%. Just you look at how long it takes to come back and be able to play football. Live a normal life, sure, but be able to play football and be back at speed. Look at Tariq Cohen. Okay, it's 19 months since he had his surgery.
So sad.
And he still can't play. Now he is the anomaly here. Obviously there were some complications with that, but still, for the most part, it's 8 to 12 months before a guy could set on the field. Now the Pickens kid from Georgia, he came back pretty quick. He tore his ACL in the spring practice, and he played the last few parts of last few games of the season. Really didn't look that good, but he put up good numbers at the combine. So, but is he even better than what he showed at the combine? Because even the combine, he's like 9 months out, maybe 10 at the most out from the surgery, and he runs a 4.49. Could he be a little faster? Maybe. But then, here's what's going to happen. Regardless of what you saw him do at the combine workout-wise, it's what the medical was. When he got an MRI, they checked the knee, they checked for laxity in the knee to see how good, do you have a tight knee joint or is it loose? And if there's laxity and there's too much movement, then all the doctors will downgrade you. We're never going to get the answer to that.
Interesting.
But I think it's remarkable that he came back and ran that fast inside of a year.
It's a good sign. Speaking of all of this great crop of wide receivers that's coming out, are they more proficient at the route tree than wide receivers of the past? Because that was always the thing that we learned, is that these young receivers take a while to become solid NFL players because they've got to learn route trees that they were never really taught in depth in the college level.
I think it depends on the school they come from.
Okay.
Like Alabama plays and they have for years now, more of a pro style offense. And so the receivers are asked to do a lot. Then you got West Virginia where Kevin White went. His route tree was like 3 routes and learning how to make site adjustments and things of that nature. So part of it's the research, and we don't have the answers to that being on the outside. We don't have, aren't able to do that research, talking to their position coaches at the school to find out what they're being asked to do. And then it's what's up here too. Are they smart enough to get up to the pro game and play? And I started to say before that, these kids, the coaches used to have them learn 3 positions. Well, what they're doing, they got smart. Now you're keeping more receivers on the team, but now they haven't learned 1.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then as they get on, they learn more, but okay, you're an X. That's all I want you to play this year is X. And so that's the split end, or the wide guy at the line of scrimmage. The Z receiver would be your old flanker term. There's a word I haven't used in about 20 years, and maybe more. But so he's off the ball, off the line of scrimmage, and your slot guy's usually off the ball too. But it's just so much easier for one of these guys to come in and learn 1 position than it is to learn 3 or even 2.
Yeah.
And so that gets them up. It took coaches a while to figure it out, but hey, the guy's talented. Let's get him on the field.
Yeah, for sure.
But let's limit his package as to what he's going to do. Especially if you think, we took him in a premium round. He's going to be around a while, but we need him to play now. So this is what we're going to have him do.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into our evaluation of players. We've got quite a few to get through. And let's begin with Treylon Burks, who is Burks finished his career as a first-team All-SEC selection in 2021. He had 11 touchdowns and 12 stats. You've taken a look at him. What do you think?
Good player. I think his combine disappointed people. You look the 4.55, the 33 vertical, the 122-inch broad jump, that's 10 feet 2 inches. That's pretty good. The 7.28 3-cone's pretty good. You're going to go back and you're going to look at the tape. And now what they have now, and they don't have it on every player, but we never had it at all when I was working full time, was the GPS speeds. And so you're getting his actual play speed in miles per hour. And so how fast he is or how fast he isn't. But this guy has been, for a few years, a very consistent big playmaker for Arkansas. The guy, I don't like doing comps, but if you want to do a comp on him, it would be Brown from Tennessee, who we just talked about, who went in the 2nd round.
Right.
Now, going into the combine, this guy's supposed to be a lock first. And he should go in the 1st. But just in the last couple of days, I'm thinking, and then I did that exercise yesterday where I gave you all the numbers. There's a chance he gets out of the 1st. Now, he might not get the 39, and only because he didn't run. And part of that has to do with Williams from Alabama. Okay, he's not going to be ready to play. Maybe the second half of the season he's going to be ready to play. Are you going to use a 1st-round pick on him? I mean, talent-wise, yeah, I got to. But because he's not going to be ready. So I had a conversation with a guy last night, and I said, you know what? I have a feeling one of the teams that has multiple firsts will take him because they have the other first, so you're still getting production from one of those top players. They're around, and then he has a semi-redshirt year, and you can bring him along slowly, and it's not going to affect your program.
Yeah, these first 2 guys we're talking about, Burks and coming up next, Chris Olave, highly unlikely they'll be there at 39.
Right, and there's no way Olave is going to be there. I think there's 25% chance that Burks could be there. Now, all the draftniks say no, and I get it, but I'm just looking at, well, how many do you think are going to go in the 1st round? And you go back, only twice have 6 gone in the 1st round, going back to 2010. So that's 12 drafts, and that should give you a good idea of, how many guys are going to go, just using the averages before. And there's good players at other positions too. And the position that a lot of these guys are downplaying is quarterback. And guess what? They're going. 2 or 3 are going. And it's not because they deserve to.
Right.
It's because the team's got to take them.
Yeah.
And they're not going to wait.
You know what? That's one of the things I hate. That quarterbacks have become so overvalued now that they're being drafted way out of.
Yeah, but it's the most important position on the team. You've got to get that right.
I get it, but if you're drafting somebody who you're overvaluing, usually you're going to get it wrong. Mitchell Trubisky. Anyway, Chris Olave.
I'm going to say one thing about Mitch.
Okay.
And the book hasn't been because and this is. Since they made the regime change at Hallis Hall, there's been stuff that's coming out.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And then, we now granted it was preseason, but we saw Mitch play against the Bears in the preseason, and he looked like an entirely different player.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't get to play that much during the season because Josh Allen is durable as hell.
Mm-hmm.
But if this guy turns out to be a pretty good player,
oh my goodness. Matt Nagy will never get a head coaching job again. Period.
No, well, it's like he had a preconceived notion of what he was based on his evaluation when he was at Kansas City,
mm-hmm.
And coming out in college. And so, did he get out of Mitch what he should have been able to get out of Mitch? And like I say, if he turned out to be a player, then the whole trade up last year was for naught.
Yeah. The thing, and I don't want to belabor this point, but I'll say this and get your reaction to it. The thing that we can blame Nagy for not putting Mitchell in better positions to win and play well. But it was pretty obvious that Trubisky just does not see the field well. That processing was a huge problem for him. And hopefully he's improved that in the time that he's left Chicago. But there just were times where you could see by watching the tape that he just wasn't seeing guys that were open and wasn't anticipating throws. He would lock into his first read and then start to panic a bit.
I don't disagree with you, but some of that comes with coaching. Okay. And when you're doing your film study with, the players and the coaches,
mm-hmm.
You're supposed to be stopping the play. Mitch, you see this? You shouldn't make the same mistake over and over and over again, especially if it's being pointed out. Look at what's happening here. You looked over here, he was open. You go back to this guy over here, he's wide open.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So part of it is being patient, but that's on the coaches.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, right. So I'm going to say, put it this way: the book's not done.
I agree with you.
With him, and I think it remains to be seen. And if he turned out to be a player for Pittsburgh, first of all, your buddy Mike North's going to go crazy. But,
that's for sure.
That's going to piss some people off.
All right, let's turn over to Chris Olave, who, of course, Bears fans would love to see this reunion between Olave and Justin Fields. It's highly, highly, highly unlikely it's going to happen.
No, it's not even highly unlikely. It ain't happening.
Okay. But I did want to get your impressions of him, and I love the way the draft scout over at NFL.com, Lance Zierlein, described him as buttery smooth, and you add in that 4.39 speed. He's an amazing player,
right? And he's fast. He runs good routes. He got great hands. He's got some length. He's got over 31-inch arms at 6 feet tall. He's got big hands, 9.5-inch hands. Got a real large receiving radius. Runs good routes. I mean, what's there not to like?
Yeah.
Right. And he was, for me, going into this year, my number one receiver. and you saw that just watching him hook up with Justin Fields, watching Justin Fields film last year.
Mm-hmm.
Say, wow, I can't wait to see this guy as a pro.
Mm-hmm.
So just a really good receiver. And then, why he was getting banged some. And you know what it is? Some of these people in the draft nicks and stuff, and I'm not saying this is scouts, it's more that they find things to bang and they find the negatives. They're looking at the negatives and they kill the guy on the negatives. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be a guy at another position, and even at this position, that I'm going to bang a little bit on the negatives. But it's tell me what he can't do, not tell me what he can't do.
Yeah. Okay. I like that.
Okay. And I used to tell my scouts that, what can he do? How can he help us? And then get into the weak points.
Mm-hmm. Would you trade up for a guy like Olave? A pick?
Yeah, but you got no. I mean, would you, Aldo? I think, and just watch how free agency has gone with the Bears.
Mm-hmm.
That's not happening. You got to preserve your draft capital. They haven't done that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in order to do that, you got to bite the bullet 1 year.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and so George Young told me a long time ago when I started working for the Giants. So this goes back almost 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
Let the draft come to you. Don't go chasing it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
When you chase, you get in trouble. Mitch Trubisky again.
Yeah.
There was no need for, that was Ryan Pace's guy, and he was scared somebody was going to jump up and get him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, so what? So then he would have had Deshaun Watson or Patrick Mahomes, if he really wanted a quarterback.
Right.
So, just be patient.
Yeah.
And the guy you like, more often than not, is going to fall right into your lap.
You had a week or more ago, you told me that you're getting a sense that perhaps a Quinn might be on the trade block.
Not anymore. He squashed that at the owners' meetings this week.
Oh, really? What did I miss?
Ryan Pohl said they didn't go anywhere.
Oh, I thought
we haven't even discussed it.
That's what I heard that he said, that we haven't even discussed it. But I guess that meant that they're not going to discuss it.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, put it this way: if they would have discussed it,
yeah, okay,
already.
Well, a part of me is happy with that. You need a pass rush. You need to help these defensive backs create turnovers by putting pressure on the quarterback. You'd love to have the 2 additional picks, but then you're leaving a hole. And with Muhammad and Quinn now at the defensive end positions, that's going to.
And he wants to play 4.
Okay.
He wants to play a rotation of 4.
Right.
And on top of that, what you're seeing with a lot of defenses now, especially when you get into passing downs,
mm-hmm.
You're moving one of these guys inside
mm-hmm.
to rush inside. And one of the guys you can do that with is Al-Qadim Muhammad.
Mm-hmm.
You could move him inside and have him do some, on a 3rd and long, and have him rush from inside instead of outside. And then you got Gibson and Quinn on the outside,
mm-hmm.
and you got to have 4, and they got 4 now. And then they got, with Adaochu being the 4th, and then, who's going to, if there's going to be a 5th, maybe it's Snowden.
Okay. Who is a player that I'm really high on. So I'd love to see his promise come to fruition. All right, let's move on now to a guy that a lot of people also I've seen in some mock drafts being taken late in the 1st round, and that's the Penn State wide receiver Jahan Dotson.
Yeah, I think he's got a chance. I think he's going in the 1st, but it wouldn't shock me if he didn't, given that thing. How many receivers are actually going to go?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's going to be players at other positions, and I'm not going to keep repeating myself. So him and Burks, if somebody slips a little bit, it could be him or Burks. Now, Dotson's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I think in our game, in the pro game, he's more of a slot than an outside guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's about the same size as Mooney, and Mooney's proved he can play outside. But if you look at the height and the weight and the speed, they're all very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Mooney more explosive. He can jump higher, and he's a little bit faster. He's 4.37.
What in particular do you like about Dotson's game?
I like the quickness. He's a good route runner. Catches the ball very, very well. He's got some run after skill. I mean, there's nothing not to like.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it just gets down to the numbers. How many are going to go? And so sometimes, you get lucky and you get into the second round, you're getting a first round quality guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying it's going to happen. And I'm not saying, no, he's not going to go in the first round. I'm saying there is a possibility that a couple of these guys that everybody's got penciled in as first round guys might not go in the first round.
Mm-hmm. There is a scouting director for an NFC team, and this is from NFL.com, who says he's got some weaknesses that are going to give him trouble in the league, but you can't really crush him for them because he can really run, and he's a very smart player. You disagree with any of that?
No, and part of it is strength, and so then you got the problem of getting off a press,
mm-hmm.
and that's why one of the reasons why I think that you're going to see him play more as a slot. And right now, a slot receiver is a starter
mm-hmm.
because you're playing with three wides most of the time,
mm-hmm.
and so if you're the slot, you're off the ball a little bit, or you're going in motion, and that negates the strength that you need to get off the press coverage.
Mm-hmm.
Just use the guy to his strengths.
Right.
Don't take his weaknesses out of his game.
Let's digress here just for a second because Tony put something up just as a joke saying that you're going to stand up for Pennsylvania guys. But that brought to mind a question. In your experience of being in working with scouts, your staff of scouts, have you ever run across a situation where you could tell an evaluator was a bit biased for a particular player, either because he spent a lot of time with the player or because, it's a hometown guy or something like that? My overall question is that as a scouting director, do you have to guard against your scouting team getting too enamored with a player for a certain reason?
No, what that gets back to, although, is knowing your scout.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I've been around some scouts that when you've been with them for years, and I'm not going to say if it was here or in New York,
sure,
but there's certain ways how they grade.
mm-hmm.
And the one guy I know is he lets the guy's character bleed into his final grade. And that should never happen
mm-hmm.
because you're grading the talent.
Mm-hmm.
The character takes care of itself. If you're saying no to the character, you're saying no to the character, but don't kill the grade. Give him the grade that he's due. You follow what I'm saying on that?
Absolutely.
So then you get into the thing, you get a grade that is out of whack
mm-hmm.
with the other grades that you have on a guy, and you almost got to throw that grade out.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're going to bang the guy for character, you do your research, you bang him. But he's going to play in the league, and what if he grows up and he matures, and 4 years from now he's available in free agency?
Mm-hmm.
And so, you still got to have, you can't say, oh, we killed him coming out of college. No, hell, but look what he's done in the pros. So grade him right and let the character take care of itself. Every team has a separate grade between talent and character.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And they're two separate things. You grade them differently, and you got to give a guy due. Even, we had we discussed this a few shows ago. We had that plus minus system.
Yeah, right.
And it's like the minus guys we wouldn't take.
Mm-hmm.
And we had them off the board, but that didn't mean they couldn't play.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And some of them turned out to be great players. They just weren't going to play in this scheme.
Antonio Brown.
He was a character. Now there's a guy that was a pure character guy. Mm-hmm. He had issues at Central Michigan. He still has issues.
Yeah.
Now he didn't run real fast at the combine, but he came back and ran real fast at his pro day.
Mm-hmm. Tony says Antonio Brown explained in an interview that Bruce Arians never liked him since he was the Steelers' offensive coordinator, and AB was signed to a big contract after only 2 years in the NFL. It sounds to me like Antonio is looking for excuses.
Antonio Brown is the biggest excuse maker I've ever seen. How about this? Right before we started the show, I saw a tweet. Mm-hmm. He needs to have ankle surgery. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to have the ankle surgery done until a team commits to me. Well, guess what? Nobody's going to commit to you because now it's getting late.
Yeah.
And you got to go through. I mean, he just doesn't think straight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's too bad. We got a good question here from Winston. Hey, Greg, how much is a scouting director on the road scouting, actually?
A lot.
You've told me stories about
well, no, I mean, I'm not on the road. I was every home game I was at. Mm-hmm. So I'd get home Saturday night or Sunday morning, depending where I was. Mm-hmm. And if I could get to a road game, I would. So, the luxury you got of being a scouting director is the way you set up your schedule. Mm-hmm. So I could set up my schedule where, okay, I'm going to be like, and this goes back to when Katrina hit. Mm-hmm. And we played the Saints. We had to play them in Baton Rouge at the LSU stadium. Mm-hmm. Well, that Saturday night, LSU played. So there was 2 games in 24 hours at that stadium. So I made my school call to LSU on Friday, had their game on Saturday, and then our game was on Sunday.
Well, yeah, some of the stories you've shared about the traveling and that had to be a tough part of your life. You spend so much time on the road. And back then,
I missed the birth of both my daughters.
That's sad, man. Feel for you.
All right, and it's not like I didn't try to get home.
That's right. You shared one story with me about trying to get there. One guy that is probably getting a lot of minuses, to use your way of scouting players, is George Pickens because of some of the off the field issues. What have you heard about him, and what have you seen on tape with Mr. Pickens?
I don't know much about the off field because I haven't dug into the character on these guys. Mm-hmm. But here he is. This was end of February or first week of March. He got hurt last year in spring practice, probably the end of March, probably April when he had surgery. So he's 10 months out from surgery, and he runs a 4.47. Now, he did play in some games at the end of the season, really had no production. So, I mean, any tape you see from 2021, you throw out. But to run a 4.47 that soon after surgery mm-hmm. is pretty damn good. But his jumps, you could see it in the jumps, that the jumps aren't on par. What do you have? What was it, 33-inch vertical there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, a lot of times speed and the jumps correlate. Mm-hmm. And that one's not correlating. You'd think he'd have a 2 or 3 inches more on the vertical, a little bit more on the long jump based on the speed. He's a good receiver. There's guys I like better, mm-hmm. but then part of it is, what's the medical? And I always, having been burned by guys with medicals before, I'm always concerned. Now, if the doctors say, hey, he's good to go, then he's good to go. Mm-hmm. And by the time you get to training camp, now he's going to be a year and a half out from the surgery. Good player. I mean, he can come in. He's probably an X receiver. He's got a big catch radius, long. I mean, look at the arms, 32 and 3/8 inch arms. Hands are small, 8 3/4, but it does make a difference. But now they wear these stickum gloves anyway. So, but Tyreek Hill's only got 8-inch hands, the smallest hands I've ever seen. I'm more concerned about the arm length, and there's one guy that we're going to get to that has real short arms that's concerning for me. But he's a guy I think he's going to be in the mix at 39. There's a guy I'd rather have that we're going to get to. I'm going to assume Burks and Dotson aren't going to be there. And is Dotson a fit? See, that's going to be. They're not telling you exactly, what their profile is for the positions, but Getsy spent the last 4 years in Green Bay or something, and Green Bay is, except for one guy, Cobb, and they brought Cobb back this year, is all big receivers. And so I'm assuming he's going to want big receivers also. And you already got a short guy and a smaller guy in Mooney. So is there room for two?
Right.
Okay, now it sounds like, well, if he's talented, he's talented. And I agree with that. But you want certain types to be playing certain positions. And if so, until they come up and say exactly what they want. And there's another guy, speaking to him, they said nice things about Equanimeous St. Brown, but his production wasn't that great. And part of it was there's some really good guys in front of him on the roster, on the depth chart at Green Bay. What did Getsy really think about this guy? Now, they signed him right away. He was literally the first receiver they signed, so he must have liked him and liked the upside from working with him. But, I saw one guy put out, he only got $985,000 or something like that. This is a tryout contract. Now, and I don't believe that because he was the first guy they signed.
Yeah.
And why overpay a guy when you don't have to? They did that, and this burns my ass a little bit. You see, our quarterback last year signs with New Orleans for peanuts, and it's pretty much the same contract he got Andy Dalton got in
Dallas
a couple of years ago.
Right.
The hell did you have to give him $10 million for?
That is a great question. And it, once again, it appeared, and I don't know this for a fact, but it appeared that Ryan Pace was bidding against himself. There was
no, he'd get a love affair with some of these guys.
Yeah, I guess that's it.
And then same thing with Mike Glennon. And you just gotta, you gotta scratch your head. But now, their sanity has come back with the contracts because Cliff Stein's doing the contracts right now.
Yeah. And
Cliff knows the market, and he's respected universally around the league, not only by people in the National Football League, but agents. Agents love Cliff because he's really good to work with. He's a gentleman. He doesn't fight with you. Now, he's a tough guy to bargain with, and you got to be tough. And there's nothing wrong with being tough. Eugene Parker, God rest his soul, was one of the toughest guys in the world to bargain with, but you always love the guy.
I love that. All right, let's move on and talk about Christian Watson. Boy, he's got some great numbers, great measurables, and so forth. And over at NFL.com, an AFC scout says, I absolutely love this guy. He is going to be a great presence in the locker room. What have you seen on tape regarding Mr. Watson?
I think he's got more upside than any receiver in the draft. And I don't think there's any way in hell that he gets to the second round.
Really?
No way.
Wow.
And you're seeing some of the guys like DJ. He's got him in the first now. Brugler's got him in the first. This guy is too talented. Mm-hmm. He's raw because he played at North Dakota State, but North Dakota State's offense is actually pretty sophisticated for a FCS level school. And his run after ability is great. His receiving radius is good. He runs good routes, but he's a big, fast guy who can take the top off. What's wrong with him? There's nothing wrong with him other than he went to a small school. Well, hell, Carson Wentz was the second pick in the draft, went to that same school. Mm-hmm. But this guy can play. And I think it's a pipe dream. And I tweeted it out yesterday. There ain't no way this guy's going to be there at 39. He's too good. The upside of what he can be is too good. And look at the last year, Lance. Lance played one freaking game in 2020 season, and he still went third in the draft. Mm-hmm. So you're going to tell me this guy who's got production up the yin-yang isn't going in the first round?
Yeah. Tony feels that he's going to be a bust because he hasn't competed against Power 5 DBs, and he's just he hasn't been battle tested, as he later says in another chat.
Tony, sit down, relax, and have a drink.
Tony,
this guy is talented, and he showed well against real good DBs down at the Senior Bowl.
Can I join Tony for that drink?
Sure. You got to look. When you're scouting, you look at the raw trait, and that he's got them, and he's got more traits than just about any receiver in the draft.
Mm-hmm. And Winston adds, "Does Watson's drops concern you?"
No.
I wish I had the metrics on that. I'll look for it and maybe mention it on tonight's Draft on Tap to see what his drop percentage was.
No, what I'd love to see, and which I don't have access to, is a drop tape.
Yeah, right. That would be.
And then when you're sitting in a NFL office, your video people can make up that stuff.
Right. So if you were to say, "Hey, get me a drop tape," what exactly would you look for in terms of form? How he positions his hand.
Well, yeah. Why is there a drop? Why was the drop there? Because you see this guy making one-hand catches and he's leaping catches and everything else. So that it's not his hand. So is a concentration. And I can't, without having seen a tape. Mm-hmm. I can't sit here and say,
right.
What the reasoning is. I mean, yeah. Is there a chance he could be there at 39? Yeah, I'll say 10%, if that. Mm-hmm. Less than 10%. But I just, I know how scouts think, and they're going to look at. Well, this way, I don't think there's a chance in the world he gets by Andy Reid, who's got 2 picks in a row at the end of the first.
Oh,
because Andy looks at this. Andy looks at the positives, and I worked with Andy for 1 year, so I know him. He's like, okay, here's what I can do with this guy. I can do this, and this, and that's why he takes him. Mm-hmm. He doesn't care what you think about it. He cares what he thinks about it.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. We got a question from Jordan. Jumping in late, but what does Greg feel about Pierce in comparison to Pickens and Watson? Okay, we'll get to that one because we're going to talk about Pierce shortly, Jordan. So stay tuned.
Well, we can talk about Pierce now if you want, as long as you brought it up.
Oh, okay, let's do that.
I love him.
There he is, Alex Pierce from Cincinnati, 6'3", 211 pounds. You probably love him for the same reasons you like Christian Watson, right?
Size. I'll tell you what, this guy, I saw him play live. I was at the Notre Dame game. Mm-hmm. He ate up Notre Dame. Mm. And, I go into the game and I don't know how fast he is. And you're thinking, okay, my racism comes out and he's a white receiver. And So therefore, he must be slow until he blows by everybody, and the guy's got a track round. But look at that. You see 4.41. Then you see a 40.5-inch vertical and a 10'9" broad jump. Remember I just said a little while ago how they go hand in hand? Yes. Well, those are perfectly going hand in hand. And, tall guy runs a 7.133 cone, which is excellent for a tall guy. He did a 4.28. You'd like to see a little bit better in the 20-yard shuttle, and he did do a little bit better at the pro day. And I think it was Monday. And by the way, I got all the pro day information up through Monday. When was Purdue's workout? Tuesday through Tuesday.
Yeah. Okay.
I got the stuff yesterday, so I don't have Alabama's stuff yet. The guy will send me the remainder. I'll wait 2 weeks because there's some more, pro days next week. Pro days generally, except for 2 or 3, are generally over by March 31st, but the combine was a week later.
Okay.
And so the draft's not any later, but some schools are having pro days a little bit late. So, you're going to be waiting for some information. But this guy, he's ultra competitive. He's tough. You see him make so many extended catches. Now, he's a guy, in my opinion, is a perfect fit in the Bears offense that they're going to be running. When you see him go up and get the ball and his size, his length, his toughness, his speed, he's got run after ability, he'll block, he gets deep. What's there not to like?
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I take him over Pickens.
Okay.
Now, I know, granted, Bears Twitter is like, that's the guy they got to have. And if they get him, fine. I just like this guy a little bit better.
Jordan is a big fan. He says Pierce is a freak show, more refined than Watson. What do you think about that? I would say I would agree with that, right?
Well, level of comp comes into play.
Right.
But and yes, you can say that Watson is raw, but at the same time, like I said a little bit earlier, the offense they run at North Dakota State isn't a chicken shit offense. They're asking their guys to make side adjustments and things, but they do run the ball a lot. So he's got a block, and that's one of the things you want to see a receiver do is block, show some toughness. Hey, that helps the run game.
Victor De Jesus says, how much stock do you put in the fact that the Bears wide receiver coach worked him out? Well, the Bears wide receiver coach is going to work out like 50 wide receivers, isn't he?
No, well, he didn't work him out. He was at the pro day.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So did he get involved when the receivers were working out? Yes. And he was at Ohio State the day before.
Okay.
I mean, it's an hour and a half drive from Ohio State down to Cincinnati.
So, all right. Let us move on now and talk about.
Now, I'll tell you, let's just stay there for 1 second.
You bet.
What I would like to see, and they might not even put it, is he going to be one of the 30 visits? Okay. Now, sometimes if you really got an interest, you're not going to bring him in because you want to hide it. And another thing with the 30 visits, there's a lot of teams, and we did it when I was there. Half our 30 visits, or almost half our 30 visits, were going to be undrafted guys because we wanted to get a physical on them, and we wanted to recruit the hell out of them. And the recruiting would come from me, Jerry, and the position coach. And the position coach would sit down and watch film with them and say, this is how we're going to. It's like recruiting a kid out of high school again. So you're starting the process early, and you're selling him on your program, and then you follow it up after the visit. You just keep calling him, and you call the agent.
Besides the 30 visits, is there also an amount of players that live nearby who have played nearby that are added to that list of players you have access to?
Well, Pierce, in fact, does not count on the 30 because he's local.
Because he's from Glen Ellen. Okay.
Okay, so you can bring him in and work him out.
Great.
Okay, and like you can't bring in a guy from Alabama and work him out unless he was in the Chicago metropolitan area.
Okay.
But this guy you can, because he's a local guy. He doesn't count as part of your 30 visits. You can bring as many local guys in as you want. A lot of teams have a local pro day, so to speak, where they work guys out. We did it every year. And again, you recruit them. We brought in one year when we had it. Remember Antoine Randall L?
Well, never forget him.
He just tore up. We had that local workout on a Sunday, and he just tore it up.
Wow. Yeah, he
was great workout.
Yeah.
But we you did it all the time. So and you don't have to necessarily. Now the agent might put it out, but you can ask the agent. Don't say we're bringing him in.
The next player on our list here is a guy I'm dying to get your take on because he's probably as slow as molasses, but man, he makes big plays. And that is, well, molasses is an exaggeration, 4.65, but you definitely would want a faster wide receiver. But we're talking, of course, from Purdue, David Bell. Your thoughts on him?
I love the tape. I was shocked he ran that slow, and he ran slower Tuesday.
Wow.
But now I'm going to put a big asterisk on that.
Mm-hmm.
And, his agent is a very good friend, Brandon Parker. And that's A-Rob's agent. This guy is A-Rob. Okay. If you want to say a guy, pattern, and A-Rob ran like 4.6 at the combine. And then he ran a little better at Penn State. But I guarantee you the Penn State surface is downhill only because you just look at the building and you can see, the building blocks on the side, how they change. It drops off over the course of 40 yards. It drops off about 6 inches, 7 inches. This guy route running, ability to adjust to the ball, his catch radius, his ability to catch in crowd, his run after, it's all superlative. He ran poorly. And then they had the pro day the other day, and Brandon texted me. I said, "Are you at Purdue for the workout?" And he goes, "Yeah," and I'm pissed. And I go, "Why?" He goes, "They're running outside." And I quick get on my phone to weather.com. I wanted to see what the weather was in West Lafayette, and it was 30 degrees with a 23-degree wind chill. And I sent back like a WF or WTF. What? Why? And the big defensive end, Carl Fadas, who's actually a local kid, grew up in West Lafayette.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to run outside. And I said, well, fine. I mean, this is going on for a half hour. Let him run it outside. Then everybody else runs inside. Pro days are to show the optimum level of the player. It's a freaking...
It's scripted almost. It's a theatrical performance almost.
It's a job interview.
There you go.
So you're going to make him run. Everybody else is running under optimum conditions. You're going to make him run outside in the cold where he's going to run worse.
Mm-hmm.
He ran 4.7, 4.70. And then they did everything else inside, the shuttles and all that other stuff to work on. And I guess his workout was really good. Saying that, he may run again in about 2 weeks inside. And
a nice fast track.
Brandon says he was consistently running 4.55, 4.56 during his training.
Mm-hmm.
Now, who am I to say they might have a quick finger? I don't know that. He plays like he's a 4.55 guy. Now there are really good receivers in this league that can't run.
Yeah, right. But they get open or they create separation.
Okay. Williams down in New Orleans, who went in the second round, he's a 4.58 guy. Now I'm gone brain dead. Who's the big receiver, not the Clemson kid, the kid from University of California at for the Chargers.
Oh, Mike Williams?
No, Mike Williams is the Clemson guy, the guy from the University of California.
Oh,
the perennial All-Pro.
Okay. I'm drawing a blank too.
4.72.
Devontae
He runs
Adams.
he runs 4.72.
Who's that?
Devontae Adams was a 4.52.
Keenan Allen?
Keenan Allen.
Thank you,
4.72.
Wow. And Cooper Kupp is a 4.6 guy, as Tony points out.
A little sort like 4.65.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay, so Cooper Kupp and so, and now this guy fits the size requirement that we think that's what the Bears are looking for. He doesn't have the speed requirement, but I think you're going to get him in the third round because of the lack thereof of speed, unless all of a sudden, when he runs again in 2 weeks, if in fact he does, and I'll know that. But you know what? Not every team's people are in meeting 2 weeks from now, because that's what I was explaining to Brandon. I said, Brandon, you might not get everybody there. I said, but now the APT team, and what the APT is called it's the Association of Professional Teams. Okay. Really, we came out of nowhere in the early 2000s, right after I came to Chicago, and it's actually Kansas City's idea. Carl Peterson, who was the GM, and then Chuck Cook, who was the college scouting director back then. And you had all your pro days in the month of March, and there was always multiple pro days on every given day, Monday through Friday. So it's impossible to get to all of them. And so what they decided to do, and everybody in the league takes part in this, is that you divvy up the schools, especially the major schools, by the 32 teams. Like the Bears got Northwestern Illinois, Northern Illinois, Notre Dame. You're going to have, and so they got to send somebody to those things, and they time the guys, and it's sent out that day. All the measurables are sent out that day to the other 32 teams. So if you don't have a guy there, you got the information.
Gotcha. And
then you can get the tape. You order the tape. Every one of these pro days is filmed, and so you can order the tape, and then it used to be a side job for the video guy. He used to charge $100, and that went right in his pocket. That didn't go to the school. So, whether they're still charging for the tape, I don't know, but they did when I was there. And some guys were getting like 150, and we're like, anytime it got over 150, I said, no, I don't want the tape then. Because I knew that it wasn't going to the school; it was going to that guy.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so, and then you'd have somebody who had the tape have him make a copy and send it to you.
There you go.
If you really needed it. So,
I love that. All right, Victor De Jesus wanted to know. You just mentioned Bell potentially falling to the third round. What do you think about Alec Pierce? You think he may fall to the third?
Hell no.
No, huh?
I mean, I could you? No, I don't even know if he gets to 48.
Really?
And I, unless you're gonna, be a racist and say he's a white man. But the guy can frickin' run, and he makes plays. Just watch the tape.
Yep, it's pretty impressive. So got to get him with that number 39 pick. Even if he's, he may not even be there. So we'll see. But
no, he will be there. I think Pickens will be there. Does one of those other guys drop out of the first?
Yeah.
Because look at the numbers. Where's my? I mean, I don't think more than 6 will go. But when you look at the wide receiver list, you got Jameson Williams, Drake London, Chris Olave, Dotson, Garrett Wilson. I mean, that's 5 right there. Okay, and then you got Burks, and some other guys, Watson. Okay, that's now it's getting up more. See what I mean? Absolutely. Somebody's got to fall out of that group.
Yeah, exactly. Good stuff. All right, let's go over. I'm going to skip one player and then come back just only because you were talking about players dropping. And it seems to me like John Metchie has been dropping on a lot of the boards I've seen. What are your thoughts on the Alabama wideout?
I don't put any stock into mock drafts.
Yeah,
because
probably a good idea.
What a draftnik thinks versus what a team thinks are always 2 different things. Okay, so, but with Metchie, he's the other guy coming off an ACL. He got his ACL in the SEC championship game, and so that's in the first weekend in December, and then he had surgery probably a few weeks later. So it's another guy that you just don't know when he's going to be ready to play. And see, here's what's going to, number one, a month ago when they were at the combine, they took x-rays and MRI, they examined the knee to see how far he's come along from the surgery, but there's what they call a redo or rechecks, and it's going to be in about 2 weeks.
Okay.
It's on the weekend, and there's guys like him, guys like Jameson Williams, injuries, or they got hurt at the combine, or they didn't work out at the combine because of a so-called injury. They're all brought back to Indy for the recheck, and they'll do another MRI and X-ray and examine the knee again. And you're going to see in that 6-week period between the original combine and the rechecks how much that knee has improved, or regardless, whatever injury a guy has, how much he has improved in that, during rehab in that 6-week period. Based on that, you got a pretty good idea how he's doing in the rehab and when he's going to be able to step on the field. Okay, so those are very, very important. And there's going to be guys that they're not going to show any improvement, and they're going to get downgraded. So and there could be 50, 60 guys go to this recheck now. And it's very, very, very important. And every team sends their doctor and trainer down there. It's not like it's one doctor's doing it. No, every team's doctors are there. It's a very important weekend. So that's with him. To me, if you want a comp, he's another guy. He's like Mooney. He's a fast little guy who played really well. I think he was a legitimate second-round pick. Now, does he still go in the second?
We shall see. As I hear you talk, and over the past year or so that we've been working together, it seems to me if you want to be a scout and evaluator of NFL prospects, you should probably take a college course on basic anatomy. I mean, you really need to know a lot about the human body, because you guys delve so much into injury concerns and this and that. I know you've taught classes on scouting. Is that something you've recommended for young people who are?
Well, I took kinesiology, anatomy, and physiology. I took all those in school.
Okay, and that's helped you, right?
Yeah, but I've also had my share of injuries and operations. So
that's helped you even more.
You got to listen to your medical staff.
Yeah, right.
Okay, these guys, this is what they do. Okay, and I know the 2 orthopedic surgeons who do the Bears work are excellent. And the one thing, none of these guys are jack of all trade orthopedic guys.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the Bears guys are knee and shoulder guys.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you got an Achilles or an ankle, there's another guy they send you to.
Mm-hmm.
That's the guy who did my Achilles. If you got a back problem, there's another guy they send you to.
Did you go to that guy too?
No.
Okay, good.
But I've met him, and he's one of the best in the country.
Uh-huh.
And so, they've got a lot of experts, and that holds true with most of the teams.
Mm-hmm.
And when, as long as we're on the subject, players got an option. Yeah, the team doctor can do it, but he got an option to get another opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times the agent takes you to the big name guys. Dr. Andrews. There's a Dr. Andrews who used to be up at Green Bay. Now he's down in Charlotte, who's a foot and ankle guy. Mm-hmm. So Achilles, and he's good. I think the guy who did mine easily as good as this guy. He just doesn't have the notoriety with athletes that this guy does. And so that happens. Jay Cutler, there's a great hand surgeon downtown that the Bears use, and Cutler was going to use him, but then his agent sent him some guy out in Denver when he hurt his thumb.
Right.
Okay, so it happens all the time, but a lot of these guys are really qualified guys, and you're getting the best money can buy.
Yeah, well, it's a big business, so you better have a great medical staff. Years ago, when I used to draft as a kid, I would always lean on guys with cool names, and that's our next guy, Skyy Moore, with 2 Y's on Sky. That is really cool. Tell me what you think about Skyy Moore out of Western Michigan.
I think he's a pure slot.
Mm-hmm.
Can really run. He can take the top off, and he's really like 5'9" and 7/8. They just rounded up there. But he's got good arm length for a guy that short.
Mm-hmm.
Big hands, 10 1/4 inch hands. He can jump. Jumps are good. The broad jump's good. 10 feet 5 inches. The 34.5, you'd like to see better than 36. But and his 20-yard shuttle at 4.32 is a little bit slow. 7.13 on the 3-cone is not too bad. But he's a good player. Dominated a lower level of comp in the MAC. Very fast, very competitive, gets open, can run after the catch, makes the difficult catch, has a large receiving radius. And I like guys with big hands.
Mm-hmm.
I always gravitate towards them because it's just, it's like a catcher's mitt when you got that big hand like that.
Yeah, sure.
And so, but again, is this guy, and he's a guy that should be there when the Bears are picking.
Mm-hmm.
Does he fit the mold they're looking for? Now, I think, Pringle played a lot of slot in Kansas City,
mm-hmm.
but not because he had to. It's because they had, Tyreek Hill was really an anomaly in that he could play outside at 5'8". And so they had to have somebody play the slot, but Pringle's almost 6'1", and he's over 200 pounds. He can be an outside receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so do you want another short receiver because you got a short receiver in Mooney? And I'm just throwing a dart at the wall here because,
Sure.
Again, they're not saying exactly what they're looking for at each position, and they're going to keep that. Why should they? They don't have to tell us anything. But I'm just going on what he's had the
Mm-hmm.
last 4 and what has been successful with him.
Do you like
Golden Tate? Yeah, he is. I think he's faster than Golden Tate.
Okay, but that is a good comp, though, right?
No, but I think he's faster and a little shiftier than Golden Tate,
Mm-hmm.
but a good player.
I'm going to disappoint Aaron, the bearded Bears fan, who on his show Sunday talked at length about Wendell Robinson, but he's not on our list today. But have you seen any of Wendell Robinson out of Kentucky?
A little bit, but he's a 5'8" guy.
Mm-hmm.
5'8". And I just don't think they're going to take guys like that here.
Yeah.
It's not what I'm debating in my head. Until I see it,
Right.
I don't know. They want to take a 5'11" guy.
Yeah. Well, the one thing that stood out to me, and I'm pretty sure it was Matt Eberflus when he was asked to describe the optimum wide receiver for him, the very first thing he said was playmaker. So Robinson and a lot of these guys that we're talking about are definitely that, playmakers. And it's one of the reasons I'm excited about the fact that we're going to get a wide receiver that could help pretty quickly here. All right, let's go on to, Khalil Shakir. This is a guy who was way under my radar, and I started looking at some tape recently. I'm pretty impressed. What do you think?
This guy is, okay, I'm going to give him a high comp here in one way. He's kind of like Debo Jr.
Ooh, wow.
Okay, not quite as big as Debo,
mm-hmm.
and that height-wise they're about the same, but Debo is about 210, and this guy's 196. But he's built. He's strong. He does carry the ball. I haven't seen it. Probably has, from the backfield position, but he runs on reverses and things like that. He can run. He's a playmaker. There's one big negative here, and you see it over to the right. 29-inch arms.
Yep. That is wild.
When you've done this as long as I have, there's two positions where you want, not two, there's a bunch, mm-hmm. but corners and receivers, you want long limb guys.
Mm-hmm.
And that's real short.
Yeah.
29-inch arms, I don't know if he can wiggle his pecker when he takes the piece. Those are alligator arms. But I love the player. Yeah. And then, you love the tape. And he's tough. Another guy I think is going to be a slot, but they can do a lot with. Good player. To that arm length. And there's a corner that is got the same problem, and he's got shorter arms than that. His are like 28.5, and that's that corner from Auburn. I don't know a corner in the league that's got 28.5-inch arms.
Man, that is small.
And so when you're up against he's short to begin with. I think he's 5'11". The guy, the corner I'm talking about. I know we're getting ahead of ourselves,
okay.
But when you're that short and you're going up against a 6'2" guy who's got 32 or 33-inch arms and you got 28.5-inch arms, you're losing.
Yeah.
You know the old cartoon when we were kids? You'd see the bully and he has his hand against the forehead against the other guy's swinging because he can't touch that. That's what it is.
Yeah, I would imagine that when you have short arms on press coverage, if you're the wide receiver, you're at a big disadvantage.
Well, and it's also, it limits, this guy catches the ball really well, and he makes some tough catches, but it's still his receiving radius isn't as good as other guys. And now one guy, this guy's a lot better, but he was the Draftniks Wonder Boy 2 years ago, and he's totally flopped. The kid from UMass who ran like 4.29.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he had real short arms. But not only did he have real short arms, he's from UMass. Remember who I'm talking about? I don't remember his name because he hasn't pissed a drop in the league.
Yeah, I'm not remembering.
But every one of his catches were in here. He doesn't even go like this. A very, very small receiving radius. So now you got Andy Isabella.
Yep.
You're right. Andy Isabella hadn't done anything since he's been in the league. And why? Because he's got short arms and a very small receiving radius. And I don't think he's got really good hands. He's a body catcher and stuff. This guy's got great hands. His only fault is the short arms. So, that's, you like the guy. He's going to play in the league. He's probably going to be a good player.
Mm-hmm.
Is this I've said this 1,000 times. Every team has got a profile for what they're looking for at every position.
Mm-hmm.
And you tend to downgrade guys who don't fit the profile.
Yeah. Fascinating. All right. Here, this next guy is somebody that I love. His name is Jalen Tolbert out of South Alabama. I'm hoping you love him as much as I do. What do you think?
No, I do. I think this guy is going to be a big time pro. He's a strong receiver. Look at the arm length, 32 and a half or 32 and a quarter inch arms, 10-inch hands. He can jump, he can run. I think he's a little faster than 4.49.
Mm-hmm.
He plays faster. This guy is a very, very good receiver. I think he's going to be a good pro. He's another guy that'll probably go in the second. He'd be there if they say took a corner at 37. He'd probably be your guy at 48, or corner at 39. He could be your guy at 48, and you'd be real happy you got him.
Mm-hmm. Not concerned about the competition he faced at college.
No, they play. South Alabama is what is that? The Sun Belt they're in, and they play some big schools. And he, went to the Senior Bowl, showed well. He's got talent.
Mm-hmm.
My first year scouting full time. I worked for National Scouting, and I had to. That was a great adjustment right there.
Yeah, wasn't it?
I had to cross-check the Northeast. I had the Midwest. I had to cross-check the Northeast. So I had to go to a little Kutztown state in Pennsylvania to see a receiver who they didn't throw to very much. Name was Andre Reed. Sucker's in the Hall of Fame right now.
Yes, he is.
Okay? So he played Division II football. Yeah. And he was a starter as a rookie.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, that rookie year was 1985, but he could play. So the guy's got talent. I don't care what the level of comp is, and you got to be smart too, because you got to be able to understand what they're asking you to do.
Mm-hmm. All right, our next guy here is Justyn Ross out of Clemson. And frankly, I don't know a lot about Ross.
I don't like him.
That's probably why I haven't studied him.
Another guy who can't run. I think he ran the other day and ran the 4.6s.
Oh my goodness.
It doesn't look like he doesn't play fast.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, he had a spinal fusion surgery a year ago. Mm-hmm. Some people thought it might be career ending. He came back and he played this year, but again, I'm going to leave that one up to the doctors. Mm-hmm. And what do the doctors say? He's a big possession receiver, but I don't think he's ever going to be better than a 4 in the league. I just don't. I don't see him play with any kind of speed.
Mm-hmm.
And he's strong. He catches the ball well. But he's your guy that's, he's going to average 10 yards a catch and or less throughout his career because he just can't run.
Mm-hmm. Would you take a shot at him like in day 3 somewhere? Depending if you're still.
Well, as to, what's hard about a question like that? As compared to who?
Exactly. Yeah.
Who else am I looking at? No,
but he has day 3 value.
Yeah, the Bell kid plays fast. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, theoretically they're the same speed, but Bell plays a lot faster, and a lot more productive, and been productive throughout his college career than this guy. Mm-hmm. And so I just, he doesn't do a whole lot for me. And then when you throw in the back, and he's already had fusion surgery, if the doctor's either going to go thumbs up or thumbs down. Mm-hmm. And the guys like that, I'm almost praying that they go like this, because then I don't have to worry about them.
Yeah. Stephen Nagishi asks, how bad did Bell hurt his stock at the combine because of those numbers he put up?
He hurt. Yeah, I mean, you expected him to run better, and he didn't. But you got to go. What you have now that we didn't have even a few years ago is his GPS numbers. I don't know what his GPS numbers are, and the guy we're going to talk about that he hasn't run yet, but they got those numbers and they're real good.
Okay, cool.
So,
before we get there, I wanted to ask you this quick question from Danger T. Do you think that Darnell Mooney can be a number one in this league like Stephon Diggs over in Buffalo?
A little bit smaller than Diggs, but yeah, in time. I think Mooney is a Z receiver, not an X. But yeah, he look at what he's done in 2 years, and he's only going to get better. But on top of that, he loves football, and he works his ass off to get better. So can he be? Yeah. Not quite as big as he's faster than Diggs. Not quite as big.
Okay. Let's move on to one of the two guys that you added on this list. Romeo, where art thou? There you are. Romeo Doubs. Doubs? I'm not sure.
It's actually it's pronounced Dobbs, even though it looks like Doubs.
Okay.
This is a guy I just referred to. He hasn't run yet.
Okay.
He was at the Senior Bowl. I guess he didn't have a great Senior Bowl, from what I'm told. But this guy's the GPS numbers. When you watch him, he just blows by people, and it can return kicks. Now, I don't think he's a number one returner in the league. I think he's a backup returner, but he handles the ball good. Long arms, big hands.
Yeah.
Does everything you like. He's a vertical threat. Okay, I think he had 80 catches this past year. Over 1,000 yards each of the last 2 years. Good player for Nevada. This is one of the games I've seen, and you can see he gets open like that all the time. It's not like it. Now, I'll tell you the guy he reminds me of, and I can't remember the guy's first name. When I first came here, we had a big, tall, fast receiver, Robinson.
Yeah, Marcus Robinson.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is like he's a little bit tight in the hips, but this guy is very similar to a Marcus Robinson type.
And he plays special teams.
Yeah, well, there he is returning kicks. Like I say, I don't think he's got the quickness and the juke that you'd rather have an NFL returner have, but he can get you out of a game if your number one guy gets hurt. I think he's a good backup returner.
He looks like a stud. And again, I used to draft guys based on their names, and a guy named Romeo I want on my team.
No, he like I said, his GPS numbers are supposed to be really, really good.
Outstanding. All right, let's talk about the other player. And I think it was Don Burr in the chat room saying this guy is flying way under the radar, but he is somebody to keep an eye on. The kid from SMU, Danny Gray.
Danny Gray, I'll tell you what, I love this guy. And you want somebody who can take the top off of a defense? Here he is, 4.33, and he plays it. Obviously, long arms for a guy 6 feet tall. He's got almost 32-inch arms, good sized hands. He gets in space, forget it. Put the 6 points on the board. You aren't getting them. I don't see his name mentioned, and I go, why? He fucking runs. He's got. I got to slap my face there. I'm supposed to be swearing. Or maybe I'll have Will Smith slap me in the face.
You would have kicked his ass. That would have been a totally.
I don't know about that. Now he played Muhammad Ali. He was in damn good shape for that. I'll tell you, I'm probably one of the few guys everybody's killing. I thought it was a tasteless joke, and I don't blame him for standing up for his wife.
Yeah, I don't blame him either. But Did you have to slap the guy on national TV? Jeez, that's
Hey, you want reality TV? There it was.
for sure. I feel bad.
Yeah, but the best part was after when he was screaming back to him.
Yes, that was the scariest part for me. It's like,
oh, he was, and so people are killing him. Why? He stood up for. Why doesn't anybody take Chris Rock to task on this one?
Well, I think he is, but I think the violence part of it is.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
But that was as real as you could get. He was upset.
Yep.
And he said, "Okay, I'm putting an end to this right now." Boom. I just
in beautiful form too.
Yeah.
All right, back to Danny Gray. I got some highlights of his action here. Again, you're really high on this guy.
Yep. And he'll probably be there in the third round, unless there's other people who like him as much as I do. But like you say, I think he was the second fastest guy or third fastest guy at the combine. And I remember DJ saying he thought he might be the vet. This guy was a track guy, but I mean, he can flat out run. And there's some plays. I don't know if you got him. I mean, you used to see him. People got the angle on him. He outruns the angle.
Yeah.
And so coming from that offense, he's going to be a little bit raw.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, but he's so damn fast.
Mm-hmm. Jordan asks, isn't Danny Gray just another Mooney archetype, though?
He's bigger than Mooney.
Mm-hmm.
He's Mooney's got to put a couple bricks in his pants to weigh 180. He's arms. Yeah, I mean, he's similar, but he's a little bit taller, and he's a home run guy. Now, you look at his size. He's the same size as Devontae Adams, and a lot faster. Now, I'm not saying that's how good he's going to be.
Sure.
Okay, speaking of second round, Devontae Adams went in the second round.
Mm-hmm. Gray is a better player than Pringle, even as a rookie. You mind that?
I love Pringle.
Mm-hmm.
Pringle jumped out at me. Pringle came in, he goes to Kansas State. They don't throw the ball a lot. But he timed 4.48. He plays faster, but he made his mark. He had to work his way up to get by the middle of this past season, he was their number 3.
Mm-hmm.
And he's tough, he's strong. He'll catch in traffic. He's good at. The guy's a good player. I'll tell you one thing I'm impressed with, and go back to this guy they signed yesterday. These guys are doing a good job finding these guys that are just starting to come into their own. Lucas Patrick is another one.
Right.
So once they get a chance to play, they're showing how good they can be, and you end up getting them fairly cheap. We lost out on Bates, who was another guy in that category, because Buffalo thought he was as good as the Bears did, and you watch the tape, and they should have. Mm-hmm. They just let the market set the figure for him. Mm-hmm. But this guy, he was mostly a special teamer until this year. He played some, but now this year he was their dime guy. And so they were playing with 6 DBs, or sometimes he was even playing with 5 DBs, but his job was the tight end. A lot of times he was up. Really, if you look at the lineup, how he's lined up on the field, he was lined up more like a linebacker, but his job was man-to-man on the tight ends, and he shut down Kittle, and he shut down the guy from Kansas City.
Kelsey.
Yeah. And, he can play man on those guys. He's got like that. He ran a 4.41. Mm-hmm. This guy's like 205 pounds.
Krushank is. You think Krushank moves into that starting role opposite Eddie Jackson?
He may. Like I said, when you watch his tape and he played just under 300 snaps for Tennessee. Some guys, they just start out slower than others. And I think he was a late round pick, went to the University of Arizona, and then they just start to find their groove. You can call him a late bloomer or whatever. And that's what this guy did. He really, I read one comment that said he was the most underappreciated guy on the Titans defense.
Wow.
So yeah, do I think he can be a starter? Yeah, because, again, it depends exactly what they're asking now. Even though this is technically the same defense that Lovey ran, talking to Ballard, who's been around Eberflus the last 4 years, he said it's a lot more sophisticated than what Lovey ran.
Wow.
And he does a lot more things with the coverage than what Lovey did.
Yeah.
So,
and you would expect that because, the Lovey's cover 2 was from many years ago and the league has changed. And so there are people add stuff to it and stuff.
Well, I'll tell you what now, he's been and I listened to the podcast. I don't know if you listened to it. Adam Johns and Hogue the other day, and they had Eberflus down at the league meetings down in Palm Beach. Did you listen to it at all?
I haven't listened to that one yet, but I will. Yeah.
Well, the segment's like 19 minutes long.
Okay.
But he's going back, and he was the defensive coordinator, and they were running Don James, the old University of Washington, and then Kent State coach. They were running his defense, which was really like almost like a 4-4 at Missouri. And he started watching Lovey's defenses. And Lovey was at St. Louis at the time. So he met with Lovey and started to learn this defense and installed this defense at the University of Missouri. And then he gets to the pros and he's in Dallas, and Rod Marinelli, who is another protege of this defense. He's the defensive coordinator. And, so it's not like he's only been exposed to this defense for 6 years. It's been going back a while. And he loves the scheme and he does a lot with it.
Excellent. Let's get to some questions here. Jamal Lewis wants to know did you draft Marty Booker? And if so, how did you know that he'd be such a good wide receiver? He's one of my favorite all-time Bears wide receivers.
No, he was already here.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Marty Booker's another guy who can't run.
Exactly. Yeah. But he got open and he made great catches.
Yeah, he had a 100-catch year too.
I was in so much admiration of how he sacrificed his body over and over and over. It really cut short his career. The fact that he fearlessly went over the middle and was a fierce blocker and so forth.
Yeah, no, a really, really good player and a real good guy.
Yeah. Victor De Jesus wants to know if Jalen Tolbert and Alec Pierce are available, who are you taking?
Pierce.
Man, that's a close one. I love both of those players. Can I have them both?
No, I like the size. I mean, Pierce is a 10th faster. I mean, we're just looking at the athletic numbers. The level of comp at Cincinnati is above the level of comp from the Sun Belt Conference. Now, this guy, Cincinnati beat Georgia a year ago. In a bowl game, and they get to the national championship this year. So he's played against top competition, and I like his makeup. I like the way he plays, and I think he fits them all. Now, hey, if they like Tolbert better, fine. I mean, I'm not going to cry.
Tony the Pod Boss asks, have you got a chance to look at Tyquan Thornton, the
guy from Baylor?
Yes.
Well, I know he can fly, but I've only done a little. Really, and honestly, I've seen highlights, and he can run, and he catches the over shoulder pass really was. You got to be careful with some of these Baylor receivers. And now, and I'm saying that out of context because the offense has changed.
Mm-hmm.
They used to be that offense, it was like the West Virginia offense where they, their route tree was about 3 routes. And a lot of those guys struggled once they got to the league.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's changed. Just the school's the same. But I mean, this guy can flat out fly. He was the fastest guy at the combine.
Mm-hmm.
And but this guy, I think you're going to end up, unless somebody just falls in love with the speed and wants to take him. Look at his hands, only 8 1/4.
Yeah, that's concerning.
So, I think he's a day 3 guy. But if you want somebody who can take the top off, that, and you got a spot for him, but it's as compared to who?
Mm-hmm. Hair Bear with a great stat. Pringle averages 4.1 yards separation. That's second in the NFL. I don't know where you got that, but that's impressive. Hair Bear.
I think that was PFF. I've seen that before.
Okay. Another question I'd like you to address before we get out of here. This is from Danger T. Would Greg wait to take a wide receiver in the later rounds? I mean, yeah, because as I do mock drafts, because I started in the last week, I sometimes say to myself, well, I'm going to wait till day 3 to draft a wide receiver because I need a cornerback, because I would love to find a 3 tech like a Logan Hall in round 2. And I need an offensive lineman. So those are my 3 picks.
They signed a 3 tech in free agency.
Jones, but wouldn't you like to have somebody else in that rotation?
Well, you got Edwards.
Oh, that's right. So you're
okay.
not as
no, but I'm going to say this.
Okay,
you might not have heard the quote.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Poles hasn't put Ogunjobi to sleep yet.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
and there was a tweet. Let me see. He had a tweet out today. Let me see if I can find it.
And as you're looking for that, I will add that Brad Biggs on his hit with the folks over at 670 The Score said that he didn't think it was likely that the agent would want to agree to come back to Chicago. And I don't know if Brad has any inside information about any hard feelings the agent has with the Bears organization regarding that, but it is what it is.
Well, I was listening. Did you ever listen to the sports talk?
Mm-hmm.
He was on with Jim Miller yesterday on Sirius, and he said it was his understanding it was a Liz Frank thing. And he goes, and those things can be,
oh my goodness,
depending on the degree. So he understands. But Larry Ogunjobi in a tweet 5 hours ago, he says, "Stay tuned," and then he's got his fingers crossed like that.
Oh, so, wow!
But it doesn't say who he's going with. But Ryan did make that statement. I think he almost got to, not give him the same deal, but put an incentive-laced deal together and do a 2-year deal or maybe even a 1-year deal and promise him. He says Mario Edwards will probably get cut. Is he nuts? Mario Edwards is a good freaking football player.
He's necessary too,
and he's nasty.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. Now, I did not. I thought he was a little bit of an underachiever coming out. Now he's an overachiever. That guy plays hard. He makes plays.
Yeah.
You look at the amount of plays he makes in relation to the amount of snaps he plays. It's real high.
Mule does bring up a good point. He is kind of a head case. He seems to get.
He's a defensive lineman.
You want them to be head cases.
You know what the definition of a defensive lineman is?
No, what is it?
A thug.
Come on. Aaron Donald is not a thug. He is.
I'm serious. Your job is to beat the hell out of the guy across from you 60 times a game.
That is true.
Okay. you don't want a guy to be the same mentality as an offensive lineman. He's got to be a nasty SOB.
Yeah. But I think Mule also makes a good point, is that he can be undisciplined on the football field and make
this team as a whole has done. Look at the history of this team the last 4 years of how disciplined it was. Yeah. Is that the players or was that the coaching?
So do you think that Mario Edwards will transform himself and be a good citizen with this Bears team?
Well, there's nothing wrong with his citizenship.
You know what I mean? In football talk, citizenship. Steve McMichael, Cornelius.
No, it's concentration. Mm-hmm. You know, and you know who you're going to have, who you have coaching this group, and the one thing that I know from what Chris told me is Eberflus holds guys accountable. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if he's going to have a stupid penalty, he's going to be held accountable to it. Mm-hmm. And you make a stupid penalty, you don't play. You want to play smart.
There you go.
You want to play, you better hustle because they're counting the loaves. Mm-hmm. And we used to do that. No, you take off a play, guess what? You aren't playing.
There you go. All right. To people in the chat room, I think what we're going to do next, people listening in chat room, what we're going to do in our next show is look at the line of scrimmage, defensive linemen, offensive linemen, if we can squeeze both into one show. So I'm not sure what day that will be, but follow us at Barroom Network and Greg Gabriel at Greg Gabe. We'll definitely let you know when that next show is. We'll talk a little bit about the line of scrimmage. I'm of the Jim Fink's school of building a team. You build a team at the line of scrimmage, and so I hope that the Bears address that in free agency and in the draft. And now, of course, as Greg already pointed out in the show, they've got a good one in that center, Lucas Patrick. Too bad they didn't get Bates. Is there anybody else in this offensive line that was acquired that I'm not thinking of?
Yeah, they got the guy
Dozier.
from Minnesota. Dozier from Minnesota.
Yeah.
I see him as a backup, jack of all trades backup. I don't see him. He has started games. He started a lot of games in his career. Right. I don't see him as a starter. Mm-hmm. I gave you the name the other day. He was with Pittsburgh last year, with Carolina for years, mm-hmm. 5-time Pro Bowler. He's only 28 years old. He's out there, and Chris Morgan, the Bears offensive line coach, coached him last year. Mm-hmm. Now, what Chris thinks, I don't know. I looked at 2 games, and the dude could flat out play. But I didn't look at – you got to look at more than 2 games. Mm-hmm. But I did an early season game against 2 good defenses, Buffalo early in the year and then Baltimore late in the year. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I saw him consistently putting guys on their backs.
Trey Turner.
Yeah. And he can pass block. He's got real long arms, which are he's got 34.5-inch arms, mm-hmm. strong. You know, does he have the movement skills? Now, I've seen him in Pittsburgh, get out in space and pull, and he's very good. But like I said, he went to 5 Pro Bowls, and he's only 28 years old. He'll be 29 in June. So, and he wasn't getting a lot of money last year. You know, you'd think a guy with that kind of resume would be getting a lot more money. I don't, not knowing what Chris Morgan thinks, I'm just saying that when you look at the free agent list still, mm-hmm. he might be the best guy out there. Now, whether, you can probably get him for a few $1 million mm-hmm. on a 1-year deal. And that's what you're going to see with a lot of these things now, with 1-year deals.
Yeah. That's, to me, it's disappointing that we've gotten to this point, but I understand that that's what we have to do.
But, everybody's doing it. It's not just here.
Yeah.
You look at the deals that are going on; they're all 1-year deals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Part of it has to do with the comp game.
Mm-hmm. I just looking over to see if there's any more last-second questions. I think we've got all of them, or at least a good majority of them. We will be back next week again to talk about the line of scrimmage. Greg, any final thoughts about this wide receiver class?
No, it's a good, hopefully you get lucky and you get a guy late like Mooney, but how often can you? I think he was just looked over, and part of that had to do with COVID.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason he should have gone as late as he did.
Mm-hmm.
And then not only did he go late, but he comes in and plays right away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a great thing that the scouting staff has remained intact, because if Poles would have been forced to, which he wouldn't have been, but if he had to build an entire scouting staff and then go into his first draft without all that prep work, it would have been a disaster.
Yeah, but the advantage he's got is he's got Kansas City stuff.
Right.
He's got Philly stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got the Bears stuff. So he's got 3 teams.
Yeah, indeed. All right. Thank you all for participating in the live portion of this show. For those of you listening on demand, whether it's on our audio podcast, just search for Barroom Network. If you're not listening to the audio portion of this show, let people know what we're doing here. I think that the more and more people know that Greg Gabriel has a podcast, the more people are going to want to participate and consume his great knowledge on the draft, on football in general, and listen to his great storytelling, because that's always a treat for me, is listening to Greg's travel stories and interactions with football greats and so forth. Greg, you're the absolute best. Thank you again for doing this, and we will see you next week. Goodbye, everybody.
Sounds good. See you later.
Oh, I pressed the wrong button.